One thing we may not be prepared for when we break things off with a narcissist is the tactics that they use to suck us right back into the relationship. In this video, I'm going to go over some very common tactics that they use so that you'll be able to look out for these and be prepared for them. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. I'm going to go over several common narratives that narcissists use on their victims when their victims are trying to get out of the relationship. The first thing I want to go over is the "it's all your fault" narrative. When you try to break things off with a narcissist, one tactic they may use to suck you back in is to try to convince you that all of the problems are actually your fault. So how dare you leave the relationship that you're creating problems in? This usually involves a lot of gaslighting, a lot of denying of reality, rewriting or whitewashing or minimizing history. You're going to have things turned around on you. Like if you are the one that broke things off with the narcissist, maybe the narcissist will start pretending that he or she is the one that dumped you. Or the narcissist will start putting a narrative out like, "I'm willing to work with you," or "I'm willing to forgive you," to really try to twist reality in a way to make you feel like you're the one that's on trial here. Your behavior is the problem. This is a really common tactic abusers use, and I don't know if sometimes they really believe this themselves. They think they do, and of course sometimes they're just trying to manipulate their victims into taking all the blame. And if this is successful, and some of them are really good at this, then you're going to be a lot more likely to go back to the relationship either out of guilt or out of false hope, thinking, oh, well, if it's all my fault, then I can fix it. Then maybe there is something I can do to save this relationship. Or of course, if it's all my fault, I guess I owe it to him or her to give this another chance. I remember one thing I heard a lot was something to the effect of, "Let's work on our problems," or "We need to learn to work together to solve these problems." And this sounds really reasonable in a normal situation, and you almost feel like you're in the wrong to reject this kind of suggestion. Let's work on our problems together and try to find a solution. But what this really does in an abusive dynamic is it's putting half of the blame onto the victim for abuse. And when there is an abusive relationship where one person is an abuser and one person is an abuse victim, it is not a we problem. It's not a relationship problem, and it's not something you can work on together. If the abuser cannot learn how to stop being abusive, there's nothing the victim can do about that. But abusers will often frame it as a we problem because it sounds so reasonable, and I'm sure they talk themselves into thinking it's reasonable. And this can suck you back in thinking, oh, they're willing to work with me. They're willing to work on our problems. But there's really nothing you can do if you're an abuse victim to solve the problems in the relationship, because the problems in the relationship is that the other person is abusive. Abuse isn't brought on by anything that the victim is or is not doing. Abuse is because of an abusive person, and that abusive person is going to go on to abuse anyone he or she is with, because that's the way they function in relationships. So I guess I could do a whole video on that particular narrative, but let's move on to the next one, which is, "I need you more than ever." Narcissists will often make you feel like you're their last hope, like they need you, they depend on you, or maybe there's something they've been struggling with that has really caused a lot of damage in the relationship. Maybe they have a drug problem or a gambling problem, or maybe they've been out of work for a long time, or there's just something that they've really been struggling with that's really caused a lot of problems in the relationship, and now suddenly they seem willing to do something about it, but they need you, they need your help to be able to solve this problem that's been causing you so much anguish. They might say things like, "How can you abandon me now that I need you more than ever?" Or, "I can't do this without you." This can be a really powerful narrative if you are particularly empathic, empathetic, and you feel obligated to help people that put these kind of guilt trips on you, especially somebody that maybe you've shared a lot of years of your life with, and especially somebody that maybe you have watched and you have just waited and longed and begged for them to address whatever problem it is that they've had, and now suddenly they're saying, oh, I'm ready to change now, I just need your help. It's important to remember that anybody that is struggling with any of the types of problems that I just mentioned doesn't need your help to change. Anyone that struggles with a really deep personal problem that tells you that they cannot solve that problem unless you sacrifice things, unless you sacrifice your own well-being to help them, is not somebody that's actually willing to address those problems. So anybody that puts the responsibility on you to help them change is not somebody that is actually going to change, if that makes sense. It's not your problem to save other people from themselves or to fix other people's problems. Another common narrative that narcissists can use to suck you back into the relationship is something like, oh, I finally see how much I stand to lose, or I finally understand how important you are to me, and please give me another chance. I never realized how lost I would be without you, or how much I really love you, or how much this relationship really means to me. And maybe they finally understand things you've been trying to explain to them for years. Maybe they finally seem to care about the way that they've been hurting you or abusing you or taking advantage of you. And you're finally getting these little glimmers of hope of like, oh, maybe now that I've left or threatened to leave, maybe that's what it took for this person to finally wake up and realize that I've been sacrificing everything I have and spending every free minute of every day trying to make this person happy. Maybe now that I'm leaving, they finally appreciate me, and maybe that's what it took for them to finally turn things around. I can promise you that if you had to leave somebody in order for them to realize how awful they were making your life, that's not gonna make them care. If anything, it's just gonna make them resent you for finally holding them accountable by leaving. And if you give them another chance, they're gonna make you pay for that. They're going to be really upset at this accountability that you've forced on them. And if you take them back, now they have an opportunity to even the score, to get back at you for doing that to them. People that actually care about your feelings, people that actually care about you and the relationship, will address the problems in the relationship when you start asking them to show that they care. When you first tell them, hey, that really hurts my feelings, or this hurts me, that's when they will care. If they don't care when you beg them to listen or to communicate, and they only seem to care when you finally say, okay, well, I'm out of here now, that's not somebody that actually cares. That's not somebody that ever cared about you or your welfare. That's somebody that only cares about now how inconvenienced they are and what a blow to the ego they now have to deal with. Another narrative that narcissists will use to suck you back in is, you're making a big deal out of nothing, or that's not abuse. You call that abuse? Or you're way too sensitive, or my friends don't think that that's a big deal, or we're just having arguments. Why are you so upset about this? Everybody has arguments, or nobody's perfect. I'm sorry you expect me to be perfect. So I lose my cool sometimes. So I get a little stressed out sometimes. So do you. So I get a little passionate about things sometimes. What? I can't get excited about things? What? I'm not allowed to get upset when I'm upset? Basically, all of these things are just minimizing a very toxic, abusive relationship. Somebody that insults you, yells at you, doesn't give you peace in your own home, doesn't consider the way their behavior is making you feel, somebody that feels like they have the right to rage at you and to make you feel afraid in your own home or when you're just with them, that's not reasonable. That's not right, and that is abusive. So that's not making a big deal out of nothing, and that's not excusable. But of course, narcissists are always going to try to frame their behavior in a way of Everybody acts like that. That's perfectly normal. Or how do you expect me to act when you're doing X, Y, and Z? Of course I'm gonna get upset. And unfortunately for a lot of us, we may be so used to this type of behavior that when the narcissist minimizes it or tries to make us feel like we're being a drama queen or we're making too big of a deal out of it or we're too sensitive, we might really start to doubt ourselves, doubt our own judgment, and think maybe he or she is right. Maybe I am making too big of a deal out of this. Maybe I am being a big baby. But like I just said, if you feel afraid to express your own opinions, if you feel uncomfortable telling somebody what you think about things, or just trying to express basic needs you have or preferences or opinions, if you're living in a relationship where you're walking on eggshells, you're not comfortable, and you're in a relationship that's unpredictable and volatile where things could be going great, and then all of a sudden, with no warning and beyond your control, things can suddenly go from 0 to 60. You can suddenly be in the middle of some kind of rage where this person's just yelling at you, insulting you, raging at you, and completely destroying your peace and scaring you for no predictable reason. That is not okay. And even if it's not outward, overt rage where somebody's screaming and their face is turning red, some narcissists are able to make you feel ashamed of yourself, really hit your self-esteem, make you feel terrible about some stupid, insignificant thing that you've done. And that is just as damaging when you don't really know what you're able to do. You're living your life in this kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of atmosphere where you never really know if you're going to do the right thing, if the narcissist is going to be happy and in a good mood, or if you're going to be shamed and made to feel like you're the worst person in the world and you're the biggest disappointment this person's ever met. Making a big deal out of this kind of dynamic and wanting to leave a relationship in which you can't predict from one minute to the next if you're going to be in a safe environment, this is completely warranted. And anyone that tries to tell you that you're making too big of a deal out of the way you feel in a relationship is somebody that is not interested in your feelings, not interested in your welfare, not interested in the health of the relationship. Somebody that actually cares about you and cares about the relationship will want to know, will want to understand why you feel so strongly about the way that you've been treated. Another tactic that narcissists will use to suck you back into the relationship is, remember the good times? Remember that vacation we went on? Remember our little tradition of doing this or doing that? Maybe they'll even send you pictures of things that you did a long time ago or songs that you used to listen to together. Or maybe they'll even future fake and they'll create these pictures of things that you once promised each other you would do together, or maybe they told you that they would do for you someday. They're really obviously appealing to your emotions here and trying to get you to remember why you were in this relationship in the first place, maybe tap into those romantic feelings you used to have, or maybe still do have for this person, and try to give you some kind of hope that those feelings can be recaptured. And of course, when we first get back together with an abusive, narcissistic partner, it is very common to go through a short honeymoon phase. I mean, it is really common to get back together and, I don't know, maybe for a week, maybe for a month, who knows, things are really wonderful again, and you do recapture that euphoric kind of drug-like high fantasy of what you wished the relationship really would have been. But of course, that's quickly followed up by often even more abuse than you were enduring before. But that can be really, really hard to resist when you're trying to break things off with an abusive partner that's really, really probably broken your heart, and you're probably still reeling and trying to recover from how deeply hurt you are and how extremely disappointed you are with this huge loss that you've had to endure. And when the narcissist comes to you and starts reminding you of all these romantic ideas and these things that you used to do together, it's really a very powerful way to manipulate you into longing even more to recreate those memories, and to give this person another chance to fulfill these fantasies that they laid out for you. I think it's important to remember that good, healthy, strong, meaningful, authentic relationships are not based on fantasies. They are not based on wistful, romantic memories we have, old photos that we took 6 years ago when we weren't completely miserable yet, or fantasies we have of some vacation we're gonna go on in the future, or maybe a house we're gonna buy, or whatever it is. Good, solid relationships that are worth going through things for have things that are worth something now, have things that give us what we need now, with somebody that cares about us now. They're not based on, oh, if I don't get back together with this person, then maybe I'll never be able to realize these fantasies I have in my head, and maybe that drug-like euphoric high I had 6 years ago when we went to whatever, maybe I'll never live that again. You're really just chasing this fantasy and this extremely superficial set of feelings when you get caught in that kind of trap. I mean, any relationship that ends that meant a lot to us, it's perfectly normal to reminisce over the good times, and it's perfectly normal to feel some sadness and some loss when we look back on the good times we had in a relationship that for whatever reason had to end. But that's no reason to re-engage. That's no reason to give this person another chance if there were legitimate, real reasons that the relationship had to end. Another tactic that narcissists will use to suck you back in is fear tactics, threats, saying things like, nobody will ever love you the way I do. Nobody could ever know you as well as I do. This is a really backhanded compliment. This is a really toxic thing to say to somebody. Nobody will ever love you the way that I do. Somebody that actually loves you can see how much you have to offer. Somebody that really loves you can see how lovable you are. And somebody that really loves you would never tell you that nobody else could ever love you like they do, because they're the very person that can see how lovable you are, and how surely if they can love you, if they can see everything that is so lovable, surely other people can too. So this is a really manipulative, insulting thing to say, really. And there are other fear-based tactics they can use, like threatening you with, I'm gonna tell all of your friends and family that you cheated on me, or you did this, or you did that, or maybe they can threaten you with financial consequences. I think it's really common for a narcissist to threaten a soon-to-be ex that they'll never get a dime, or they'll never be able to see the kids again, or they'll never find a place to live, they'll never be able to afford a place to live. This video is more for romantic relationships, but I know in workplace relationships, a narcissistic boss can threaten an employee that they'll never find anybody that will pay them as much, or they'll never find anybody that will want to hire them. And back to a more romantic relationship, a narcissist might say things like, what will the neighbors think? What will our friends think? What will your mom think? And just really put doubts in your mind of, oh my gosh, the whole world's gonna end if I try to break off this relationship, and I'm gonna be alone and homeless and a big failure for the rest of my life. While I don't know your personal situation, and every personal situation is different, sometimes there are really high prices we have to pay to get away from narcissistic people in our lives, and sometimes it's no joke. Sometimes it's not a simple, easy decision. So I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that you definitely will be way better off if you leave the narcissist, but I know that as far as your emotional well-being and your mental health and your ability to pursue things in your life that add meaning to your life, your ability to just be happy and content and safe in your own life is deeply affected by whether or not you continue a relationship with a narcissist. I think it's just really, really difficult to have a happy, fulfilling, peaceful life when you have a narcissist in your life, especially if that's your romantic partner, because that person expects so much from you. That person really expects everything you have to give, that you put all of that into what makes the narcissist feel good for the next 5 seconds until they need more of whatever it is you don't even have left to give them anymore. I just don't know how that can ever be conducive to a healthy enough life that's worth whatever it is you have to give up to get away from them. And the last tactic I'm going to mention that narcissists use to suck you back into the relationship is acting like nothing ever happened. And this one's pretty bizarre, but I'm sure that many of you watching have probably experienced this, where maybe there's this huge breakup and there's just this really ugly fight between you or whatever, just really contentious, dramatic ending to a relationship, or maybe just a really horrible fight, and then the narcissist just calls you out of the blue one day or just texts you like, hey, want to hang out? Or hey, happy birthday. And then it's like, what? And narcissists really use this as a tactic because it can be so disorienting. If somebody that you had such an ugly interaction with just suddenly texts you one day and is acting like nothing ever happened and acting like everything's totally fine, it can kind of make you second guess your own version of reality and think, didn't we have the worst fight I've ever had in my life just like a month ago? Why is this person acting like everything's just fine? Maybe they are just fine. Maybe I made too big of a deal out of that. I mean, if it was that big of a deal, they wouldn't just be calling me now and acting like we're best friends, right? But narcissists do this, so this is just one more tactic to be on the lookout for. Don't let somebody that's treated you like garbage just turn around and act like nothing bad ever happened and that everything's fine, because they're just doing that to try to wipe the slate clean of anything that they really need to take accountability for. I hope that going over all of these tactics and these common things that narcissists will do to suck you back into a relationship you're trying to escape, I hope this helps you prepare for these things, because if you're trying to break things off with a narcissist, I can almost guarantee you that at least one of these things is going to come up for you. And if you're ready for it and you're prepared to ignore or somehow manage this type of tactic, I think it's going to be just a little bit easier for you to do something that's really incredibly difficult. And I hope that this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.